Devontae Parker gets traded in division to the New England Patriots. Looks like the Eagles are looking to the 22 NFL draft to fix this. Let's talk about this for a minute, guys. What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL world? How you doing, Division Rivals? This is Steven Hyder with Gate City Sports Channel. Sports Channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. What's good, everybody? So, on the topic of this, since I'm basically sponsoring myself today, guys, if you would like to know some in-depth analysis on these wide receivers, I have an offensive draft guide that's about 98 pages long that is an in-depth breakdown going over yak yardage, going over basically the depth of targets, all kinds of stuff inside this guide, guys. Link is down in the description below. It'll be the first link. Devontae Parker gets moved in division from Miami to New England. I mean, division rivals, guys. I don't know the extent to their rivalry, but it is a division rival. Normally, when you move a guy in division, it means you feel pretty confident that that guy is done. And it's a gamble because Devontae Parker is older, but he's not like over the hill old yet, guys. I mean, he's still right under 30 years old. I mean, he could still have 3 to 5 years of productivity left in him, depending on the status of how he keeps himself, right? I mean, everyone's different about the way they approach it, diet, nutrition, sleep, recovery, all that kind of stuff. I don't know Devontae Parker personally, guys. I can't speak to that. But he's had a ton of injuries over the course of his career. And I think those injuries have prohibited the production of a really good football player at times. I mean, I have watched Devontae Parker since his time in Louisville. And to be honest with you guys, he's a really good football player. This is a tremendous athlete. But he has been injured quite a bit. I'll say this, for the New England Patriots, this move makes a ton of sense. You got a young quarterback in Mac Jones. You're trying to get him veteran pieces around him, right? I thought Bourne, the wide receiver they signed from the 49ers last year, was one of the underrated kind of signings last year because he wasn't very much in San Fran, but he popped every now and then. They get him to New England, and I thought he had a fairly decent, season for New England as being that low-budget guy. But, of course, you're going to want an upgrade over that. New England's had its own struggles just like Philadelphia with hitting on receivers in the draft. I mean, they definitely have had their fair share of misses there as well. So that kind of spins this conversation into the Philadelphia Eagles and the fact that it looks like we're dead set for the 22 draft. Now, I'm not saying that we won't reapproach the situation following the draft if things don't fall the way they fall. But let's be real, guys. I mean, if you disagree, talk to me in the comments, guys. Let's discuss it. But this definitely feels like a situation where the Philadelphia Eagles are going high in this draft at wide receiver. Now, understand this. When I say high, I'm talking about day 1 or day 2 value, meaning first to third round. That's what I mean by high. If they draft a receiver in the first round, it'll be 3 straight years in a row. But even if they draft a receiver in the second round, it's going to be 4 straight seasons to where they drafted a guy in the first or the second round. So no matter what, we're looking at a track record of really digging back in at the draft at wide receiver, guys, to be quite honest. And with that said, it leads to a really interesting discussion because I think if you're going to play the draft game, you got to be real careful about the guy you draft. There are some very talented guys out there that it would be a risk for the Eagles to take because their route running, it's not very good right yet, guys. They're solely relying on talent. I love Christian Watson's athletic ability, man. That guy's got some real ability. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, he misses the mark on those routes. He's not very good at learning how and where to secure the football in the air, attacking the ball in the air. He's got some little intricacies that's got to be done. He's not a very great route runner. He's just super athletic, to be quite honest. That's a guy that's really risky because, my opinion, if you go for a guy in the draft, you need an NFL-ready body right away. Some guys, maybe they just get by. There's always a DK Metcalf out there, right? He's not a nuanced route runner by any stretch of the imagination. That dude's just such a physically gifted prospect and player that none of that crap mattered. It didn't matter that he wasn't very good at sinking his hips and cutting and getting away. The dude just basically out-bodied everybody in that back seven of any defensive backfield, and he just won. Simply put, as a receiver, he just beat those guys. With that said, I definitely think the Eagles are probably going to be, just off-the-cuff feeling right now. April 2nd could change over the next 10, 15 days, guys. I think they're going to look towards more of the known commodities, the guys that can run precise routes. And I think you get yourself into some interesting discussions, right? Because I think you get guys like, let's talk about London, right? Drake London, who had I'm talking about a phenomenal college production career. In his entire college career, he's only had 3 games under 50 yards receiving. But I can tell you there's some nuance to the way that he runs routes that makes you a little worried because he is a bit of a tall runner, right? He shows his numbers a little too much for pretty much any wide receiver coach is liking. I'm going to tell you that right from the jump, guys. He's a bit of an upright runner. But with that said, guys, it has not limited his production. Now we're talking about the Pac. And anytime you talk about the Pac-12, you got to be a little skeptical, guys. I understand that. I get it, guys. With that said, man, that guy he has not missed it. And, USC has produced dudes over the years. He's going to be an interesting guy to make a decision on if you're the Eagles because he can be a tall slot or a boundary side X. He could definitely give you that kind of production, right? Then you go into a guy like Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks, another guy that I think, you see that 4.5, like 7, whatever it was he ran at the combine, guys, and it might turn people off to him. And I totally get, like, Gate, man, we have just not had luck with dudes that didn't quite put in what you thought at the combine. The thing is when you turn on his film against SEC corners and secondaries, he's plenty fast enough, guys. He's separating. He's beating them for 90-yard touchdowns. This dude can run. I have no doubt about it. He's more of a yak guy anyways. He's going to be a guy that's going to work the underneath routes and get you those tough physical yards. And if you hit him in stride, look out. He's on the run. He's a really interesting one, right? His college production is a little shaky. I'll tell you right now. He played in the SEC, so you got to take everything with a grain of salt here. But his college production is a little shaky, to be quite honest. With that said, now we're talking about the DK Metcalf type. Now, I'm not talking about one for one in terms of what they are in the NFL. I'm talking about the fact of just how they're built as athletes. I mean, DK can fly, though. I mean, that's the one thing is DK is going to show up for you on a stopwatch. There's no doubt about it. But they're built the same way. These massively strong human beings out there on the edges playing. He's a very interesting guy to see what would the Eagles do in that situation, right? And then I think you get into the more nuanced route runners. The guys that maybe some of us would probably push back a little bit and say, like, Gate, they're just not like these 6'1" plus, 80-inch wingspan, these type of like big physical receivers that you trust to play the boundary because of physical size. And they're not. And I'm talking about upper half of the draft, guys. But nonetheless, man, these are dudes that separate. They're just separators, and you got these guys that are, I would call 3-level runners. Those 3-level runners basically are, going out to Ohio State and Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson is the best at it. I think he's arguably probably the best. He's the most ready to step onto an NFL field and produce, I feel like. From watching his film, that's what I get from him, is a guy that I trust I can plug in, and I know he's going to give me production right from the jump. We can definitely argue about the ceiling and say he doesn't have the highest ceiling of these dudes, and that's very much true, but I know that guy's going to be at least good in the NFL. Is he going to be far more than that? Who knows? It's always hard to say with these guys, right? Jahan Dotson, another guy, works all 3 depths. When I say levels or depths, I'm talking about the receiving route. So, anything from the line of scrimmage to 10, or from 9 yards, from 10 yards to 19 yards, anything over 20. Jahan Dotson, he definitely does it, man. I mean, there's some questions about can he work the middle of the field? We'll have to see, but, man, that dude didn't drop crap, man. What was he, like 2 drops? I mean, the dude he's solid hands as they come, guys. A good route runner. Definitely can work all 3 levels, like I said, all 3 depths. I like him, man. I think he's a really good player. And then the other guy is going back to the SEC now, and that's Metchie. I think Metchie's a good player, guys. I know he's coming off an injury, John Metchie III, and he's got that knee concern, but if that's a dude that you could snag at 51, you're getting a high-quality player, guys. You really are. I mean, I like him a lot. Now, there are definitely dudes I would love to take a flyer on. It's just scary. It's really scary given the nature of how much we need production at the wide receiver position to take a flyer on a few guys. But I'm going to tell you right now, Jamison Williams I'm okay with. I don't consider him a flyer. I consider him a little bit of, a guy that's kind of similar to what we have on the team already, but he's exceptional at it. You know what I'm saying? Like, Jamison Williams there, the Eagles want to take him at 19, or if they trade back and I don't care. If they take Jamison Williams, guys, I'm fine with that. I think that's a great ball player, man. That dude's as explosive gets to me. Past Jamison Williams. Some other names that are out there that I think are a little bit more nuanced here in terms of, like, we got to be careful because of the situation we find ourselves in. To begin with, George Pickens. He's coming off an injury. He was expected to have this monster mental season in 2021 at Georgia. He got injured. It derailed him, right? When you look at his yards per route run and his college production and stuff like that, guys, it's iffy. It's not very good. But that's a physical talent player you're banking on, right? You're not looking at the college production if you're drafting George Pickens. You're going after the physical nature of who he is as a player, right? You're projecting there. That's a projection with George Pickens. Justin Ross, freshman, sophomore year at Clemson. That dude, man, he looked like Keenan Allen to me. He's a dude that if he's fully healthy and he's coming back from injury, it's a risk. But I know he's a seasoned route runner. I know he can run routes. I know he can contribute. That's a guy that if you start missing on guys, you can't get in position to get dudes, and you're hanging around there in the third round, I'd probably take a shot at Justin Ross. I think he can actually play. The problem with Ross is he's got a major issue with, he had some kind of issue with his vertebrae, guys, where it required him to have surgery. He missed all of 2020. Then when he came back in 2021, inconsistency at the quarterback play. He wasn't quite the same guy coming back from that injury than coming with a different quarterback in the fold. But if your medical team gives you the all clear there, he's an interesting prospect to me. Alec Pierce, man, yeah, he's a guy that you got to work on the route running with, just like Christian Watson, who's also in this group of guys. Christian Watson, to me, is like if you're in the back end of the first, you trade back. Even at 19, I think he'd be in consideration for the Eagles. That's a guy, if you believe in your coaching staff, you go get him. Same thing here, guys. Alec Pierce, if you believe in your coaching staff, you're in the second and third rounds, day 2, and you really believe in your coaching staff, there are things on the physical measurements that he can do that your mom either gave you that or she didn't. It's all pure genetics, guys, because that dude does things that you can give me 20 years to try to teach somebody from the time they're born till they're 20 years old, and they ain't doing it. They ain't doing it. The genetics ain't there, man. That's a guy that you could take a risk on. I see it, but it's risky. You know, there's a lot of these dudes in this draft class, guys. There's a lot of really talented receivers. It's a matter of, with all these wide receiver coaches we got here, former wide receiver coaches, if you will, I mean, from our offensive coordinator, Shane Steichen, who's worked with wide receivers, quarterbacks, and been an OC, to our head coach, Nick Sirianni, who's worked with wide receivers, quarterbacks, been an OC, and now a head coach, to, you know, we got Patullo in here, Kevin Patullo, who's a former wide receiver coach himself, passing game coordinator, to Aaron Moorhead, who's a former NFL wide receiver and our current wide receiver coach. If these guys can coach and you believe in them, then I understand why they might go for one of these more riskier players because, you know, they just feel like, hey, if I can get this guy to hit the mark and be in the right spot, it's there. But there's always a flip side argument to this, guys, and let's get into the flip side here. The flip side is that if these guys aren't ready to produce early and you're working them around for the long haul, you're trying to evaluate a quarterback. And are you doing it fairly? Are you evaluating them fairly if you don't get a piece that's ready to contribute from day one? That's the real question here, guys, and I don't have the answer. I mean, only time can tell on some of these things. With that said, man, there's a lot of talent in this draft. I'll tell you right now, guys, there's not the elite talent. I'm not saying there's that elite guy. I do think a few guys have come on here and they've broken down receivers. And I think they've very correctly said, you're not getting a certain caliber receiver from this draft class, but you're getting a lot of good ones. This is a good quality depth draft. We'll see how it goes, guys. All right, y'all, I appreciate it. If you made it to the end of the video, if I can ask you to hit that subscribe button, I appreciate y'all so much. Don't forget to check out the guide marked down below, guys. I'll see y'all on the next video. Enjoy y'all's weekend, guys.